have your attention, please. We'll make a start again. I hope you enjoyed morning tea, and apologies for the big queue. We've got our volunteers rearranging occasions tables before lunch. And I hope you also had an opportunity to have a look at the stakeholder showcase, and that'll remain over lunch. So there's some worthwhile resources, bits of information to have a look at that. I'd like to invite Maryrose Baker back to the podium. Maryrose is going to talk about the Teachers GDHR, ongoing improvement for our clientele. In her role in the health department, Maryrose is responsible for schools and schools-related areas and has a long track record in school-related health, being a teacher and also working in the area of school health promotion for a long time. Maryrose. Sorry. Get myself organised so that my voice naturally projects. No props. Right down there. When Jackie asked me to do this session, I thought I need to make my session sound a bit more sparky. So I've adopted the language of the marketing people. I've said ongoing improvement for our clientele. How about that? I bet you saw that on the program and thought, wow. Look, those of you who've been on the RSE sexuality education wavelength for some time will know that this sponsoring banner, if you like, GDHR, goes back many years, back to 2002 with the books. Then we had our first generation website in 2010. Then our second generation website, Mark II, if you like, went live in 2015. So I'm fortunate to be in a program that believes in making sure that we are that our resources are best practice, and we put money into evaluation, telling us whether the materials and the things we do are actually worthwhile. So I'll just see if this goes on to the next one. Which one is it, Jackie? Right one, there we go. So on that line, we invested a substantial budget into evaluation for the website in 2016. Because we want to know from you, our clients, teachers and educators, that GDHR is useful and how we can make it as useful as possible. So the purpose we put to the evaluator, as you can see, was to tell us just that. Is it working for you? And how are practical ways that we can get to strengthen it? Now, John Scougal, it struck me after I agreed to do this that John Scougal would have been a really good person to come and present, because he found out lots of really interesting things through his research about teachers and what they need and how their practice is and what resources help them in their practice. But I wasn't sharp enough to do that, so we don't have John, but I might get Jackie to actually do a webinar or something with him one day, because he's a very strong evaluation consultant and speaker, and I think people would find it really useful to hear from him. So John investigated these areas. Does it add value to teachers from kindergarten to 10? And students, and how. John's focus was very much on the end line, the students, how students' health behaviours are going to be improved by this resource. He wanted to know about teacher perceptions as the key stakeholders, to use the jargon, in terms of the value and quality of its content. What improvements are needed to increase the effectiveness and to build the educators' capacity. That's a very hackneyed health promotion term there, building capacity. And what do the stakeholders want to see from it in the future? That was his brief. As good practitioners, we established a reference group, so you'll be reassured that there was a good selection of practical people on the reference group. We had a secondary classroom teacher and a primary classroom teacher, both of whom are here today and presenting actually, Calandra and Trish. We had a school community health nurse, our partners in sexuality education out there at the coalface with teachers. We had a consultant educator and a web content expert, an academic, a medical researcher, and of course, Department of Health staff. So right from the start, John's work was shaped and supported by this group. Jackie was also on the reference group. So John's methodology, both comprehensive and academically valid. It was very interesting to be so closely involved in such a broad-scoped evaluation process and applied research. And we gave him the brief, and he took away the brief and then designed how he was actually going to feed back to us all of those things that we wanted to know about the website. So this was his methodology. He did qualitative interviews, as you can see there. So in some instances, we had to engage the networks to find out who was out there. That's one thing that we want very much to have, is that a kind of community of practice where we have a wavelength. It's a bit like what Dino and Antoinette was saying. Getting the buy-in, getting the involvement with folk such as yourself and your colleagues is really crucial for all kinds of reasons, including evaluation and getting out there. So we managed to source those people for teachers, academics. They're always easy to get, aren't they, the academics, Jackie? School nurses and program managers. John also defined that he'd do 2 case studies, 2 sample workplace or organisational sites, which he described as information rich, so he could really kind of closely investigate and examine the way they undertook the whatever element of the resource it was. And in the 2 instances that he selected, we would have wanted a school as a case study, but we, despite our best endeavours and me working those phones, I couldn't find one to actually sign up to it. So we, in a way, it was a bit of a default, but it was actually a very worthwhile thing to use our IT partners. The tech support that you have to use with a website is immeasurable, and that's the way of the workforce now. The ICT people are equal partners with us, really, because what they provide is the means for us to put the educational components in, and it needs to be just the right way. So our technical support people for the website were part of the case study that John undertook, and SCASA and ASWA too. We did ask the Department of Education to come in on that, but they weren't able to at that time. So John also did a program logic workshop, which many of us had no idea what it would be, but it was a kind of theoretical modelling kind of session, really. We had invited people, not so much, it was more the policy level people and the kind of structural organising people from non-government organisations, tertiary education, government, independent and private sector areas. So we did have representatives from the Department of Ed, ASWA and SCASA come along to that, as well as I think SHQ, Sedera, a few other non-government organisations. There was about 15 people in that, and John's methodology was presenting models and visions for the future. It was quite theoretical, but out of it he actually got a very good working document that I think's got a lot of potential for future promotion, the so-called best practice matrix, which I'll mention in a little while. We also did the Omnipotent online survey questionnaire, and the good thing about that was we used all of those organisations to engage with people teachers out there and school nurses. So WA Health Promoting Schools Association, the Australian Council on Health, Physical Education and Recreation, Sexual Health Quarters, Community and Child and Adolescent Health, and we got 150 usable responses. Most of those were from teachers, which was a really satisfying result. We were able to feel that a lot of the feedback on that survey was very much from the educators that are doing the work. As well as that, John did a very comprehensive literature review of all of the RSE best practice and theory material out there. So this was the diagram of his methodology. He also did a desktop document review, which was a kind of compilation of lots of documents and briefing papers and various things. So, his findings, I'm just going to do it very quickly really, because this is the area I think he had some very new information really about what's going on out there in schools and what teachers understand and perceive about their practice. He reassuringly said that the website can equip teachers in our schools with the capacity to deliver RSE, especially those teachers who are unsure about where to start teaching this area benefit the most, not surprising really. I've selected the findings that are of particular interest to teachers, by the way. There is a lot more. I've actually got the 374-page report there. One photocopy only, but it is on the website, so some of you may have already noted it there anyway. He found that it builds the capacity of less experienced teachers because it provides a convenient starting point. Because it's pre-packaged, it's readily accessible and easily consumable, it's downloadable, it's time-saving. Where have I gone wrong there, Jackie? What have I done? Can you get me back, or shall I get you back? Great, thank you. And it builds confidence of apprehensive teachers, which, a very important thing in this area, because we're all about developing confidence and reassurance about working in this area, which is also why the parallel area of professional development is so important. However, it also builds the capacity of experienced teachers, because it actually adds the most value in a classroom when the material that's available for you on that website is delivered by experienced educators. And these are the sorts of things that John was able to probe and feedback. That it's more effective when it's practiced over time. That's very much part of Jenny's message, really. This work starts way back in kindergarten, pre-primary, and if it's practiced over time, it's so much better. The more you do it, the more you become confident, and experienced teachers are the ones who tend to have those pre-existing and trusting relationships with their class. I have a lot of notes, excuse me, while I take two. Okay. Just a little snapshot of the teachers that participated, some of your perceptions. It was a useful source of practical ideas. It contributes to knowledge, skills, understandings and confidence. And most valuably, the fact that it's aligned to the curriculum was a really important thing. The breadth of its content, so it spans primary to secondary. The fact that it's got the background notes, that the kind of underpinning of the content area is there for teachers to swat up on before they actually, do the lesson in that area. The fact that it's organised by school year and that it has the scope to be able to search by theme topic and that it's linked to other resources as well. But it adds most value where teachers have those pre-existing relationships of empathy, trust and rapport with their class, and where they have access to PD and other support, be it colleagues, be it principals, be it a good supportive parent group, be it PD that you've had. A high level of student engagement and positive reinforcements of the messages at home. You may have seen that Talk Soon, Talk Often book that's out there on our stall, and that's very much the kind of complementary home and school kind of connection that's the ideal. If you've got time and interest and commitment to it, then GDHR adds most value. It's, those teachers who are champions for whatever area, are the ones that put the interest and commitment into things, and those of you who are doing that with RSE are, the champions out there. It also adds most value where the teacher is time poor and who isn't, or the teacher is new to RSE. Thanks, Jackie. So here we go. This is the report, the hard copy being down there. This is it on the website. There's much more to be done. We now have a roadmap ahead, really. John's report gave us 11 highly detailed recommendations. Being true public servants, we've considered all of them closely in association with our capacity, our budget, and our business planning cycle. And we've allocated high, medium, or low priority to each of the 11 recommendations. And it's a selection of those recommendations from the action plan that I thought might be of interest to you. So John said we need to better measure the usage of the resource by our target users. So he said that we should monitor and report the extent of online use and ensure that it's reaching its target audience. And he's given us 4 specific means of systematically tracking and analysing. We've done this with GDHR and Google Analytics from the beginning, but we just can't get the kind of information that we need about who's using it and how much they're using. So we're probably going to expand the data collection and use pop-up periodic survey instruments, but some of those need to be considered by our advisory group. So he said we need to extend the quality control processes, and to this end, we will be establishing an external advisory or governance group, and that will consist of external people, external experts, practitioners to give us direction about the kind of things that the website needs to be targeting and so on. And the quality control measures about communication, feedback, advice from educators, consistency with current pedagogical practice in WA schools. teacher PD events and annual surveys are possibly some of the more systematic means that we're going to be trying to get feedback from educators. So enhance the website. Now, as you can see, quite a few specifics there about how we can do that. One of the areas mentioned is being presented today. The new Year 7 learning activities with the unit theme approach is one of the means that we're enhancing the website, and that's going to be presented in the from the field or the workshops, I think. Additional teaching and learning strategies, external links, and in sort of business planning cycle, we have to get a business case submitted for the development of many of the new features that will cost money. Marketing and promotion, of course, we've suspended this over the last couple of years, really, because we've had so much else going on, including the new LifeRay portal development, as well as the impact evaluation, and as also the West Australian curriculum was, kind of bedding itself in, and we were very adamant that we would be consistent with that, and we needed to make sure that was happening. So we've got a lot to do in marketing and promotion. Professional development. Well, we've got this wonderful partnership with Curtin, which will be ongoing. Curtin have got some great proposals about going online with some of their undergraduate teaching materials. So we're, very much supporting that too. And we'll explore possibilities for expanding it to all teachers via GDHR. Governance, well, this is the same as the recommendation 3 related to the advisory group and the governance group. So that'll be happening as well. And partnerships. This is all Scruggle's specific direction about what could be done. There was several agencies that he suggested about the partnership and marketing plan area, and the work plan for the schools team will, and the new schools officer will address some of these things. The ESSA syndication is already kind of, we've already got the capacity on the website to do that, we just haven't linked it up yet. Okay, I'm right there, Jackie. And the broader policy context. So he's saying, we need to work around those sorts of areas that are noted there much more clearly. And extend the portal, and that's going to be money as well. The portal has so much capacity, but we're not really using it, maximising it at the moment. And that, as I said to you before, John provided a best practice matrix and gave ratings, and I'll show you, it's not a very clear shot of it, but it just gives you a measure of the detail that he went into about what he's saying a school or a program that is applying best practice in school-based RSE. That's page 17 of the program logic report if anybody wants to see that more closely. But it sets out all of the kind of elements and components of a program that would be termed employing best practice. So I think that's got a lot more capacity really to be used. Don't know exactly how, but I do think it's a really good piece of work. So, as I said, we've got a highly detailed map to follow in the next 5 years, we hope that it will become even more useful for you and people working in the SRE sector. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Maryrose. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. It was really nice to see in Antoinette and Dino's presentation the links to GDHR. I know Maryrose and the team at GDHR have been working quite closely with SCASA to look at the links between GDHR and working with assessment items. So it's a really good resource to use if you want some good assessment items and if you want some good links.